I actually used to be a magician. I had a whole magic show with juggling and really cool magic tricks, and I would go around to different events and libraries and perform magic shows for everybody. And that kind of inspired me to try to combine my love of magic with programming and program a magic trick. So in this tutorial, I show you just how to do that. Just so you know, there's cards that are featured in this tutorial. They used to be for sale, they're not anymore, but everything else in the tutorial still applies. Hi, I'm Bo, and I am going to show you how to program a magic trick using Node.js and MongoDB. We are going to be using these freeCodeCamp playing cards. So freeCodeCamp has some playing cards that you can actually buy. So the link is in the description if you want to get your own copy. But check out these playing cards. Each card has a different programmer, a different important programmer from history. These are pretty cool. We got Larry Well, Adele Goldberg, and there's all sorts of different programmers from history. So I'm about to perform the magic trick on my friend, and then we'll show you how it works, and then this is going to be a coding tutorial. I'll show you how to code this trick using Node.js and MongoDB, and we'll deploy it to Heroku. So let's see the trick.
It's kind of sick.
Okay, Caleb, I have a card trick to show you.
Okay.
I have these freeCodeCamp playing cards.
All right.
And what I'm going to do is have you pick any card that you want.
Okay.
Yeah, pick any card. Are you sure? Okay, what card? You can tell us. You can tell everyone what the card is. What is it?
Richard Stallman, a 6 of clubs.
Okay, so it's that's a spade. 6 of spades.
Oh, six
right?
of
Six
spades.
of spades.
Yes.
Okay, so this is what we're going to do. I made a program that's going to be able to figure out what your card is.
You did?
So yeah, I have our iPad here. It has a fun kid case, and I'm gonna have you go to a website. You have to type in the URL. It's gonna be. Do you see? I don't know. Can you look at the player? Can you see that? So you're gonna type in the word any card. So ANYCARD, and then you're gonna do dot.
Okay.
And then you're gonna type in Heroku app. You spell it H-E-R.
H-E-R.
U.
U.
Wait, H-E-R-O. H-E-R-O. K-U.
K-U.
A-P-P.
A-P-P.
.com.
.com.
Now you do a slash.
Slash.
You see the slash on the iPad keyboard?
I will. There we go. That's
now type in your name, Caleb.
Gonzalez or just
Caleb.
Okay.
Now press go. Press go. And it's the card. Why don't you show it to the camera? 6 of spades.
Oh, that's so crazy.
The card that you chose.
How did you
it
do
appeared
that?
on the website.
That's pretty cool. Coding, it's like magic. All right.
Okay, one thing you may not have noticed, my wife was in the background and she was typing something into her phone. So this trick, actually, you do need to have an accomplice that can help out with this trick. It doesn't have to be right next to you. You could actually have someone far away as long as they can hear a recording of what's happening. But my wife was actually putting in some information into the website that gets stored on the MongoDB database. So then when my friend went to the certain website with his name, it would not have worked with any other name, just his name specifically. It gets the data from the MongoDB database so it can display the card that he chose. So let's go into the computer, the code editor, so you can see how this works. First, I'll show you how this AnyCard app works, and then we'll start coding it from scratch. So we went to the URL, this is the root URL, and then /secret. This is where your person that's helping you, the website that they go to. So we're going to enter a name. I'll put Bo, that's my name. And then if they say whatever the card that the spectator picks, your helper is going to go to 4, let's say it's 4 of spades. And then just do submit. Now, if we go to /Bo, we should see 4 of spades. But if we go to another name, like Quincy, it'll just show not found, because that hasn't been entered into the database. And then also, if you ever wanted to delete everything, we can just go to delete all, and the database reset. So now if I go to Bo it will not show anything. So it's a pretty simple app, but it can make a pretty impressive magic trick when you go to perform it on somebody. So let's start building this from scratch. I'll go over into Visual Studio Code. I've already created a folder, and then inside the folder that's called AnyCard, I created server.js. Another thing I have already done is copied in this cards directory, and this just has an image of each card that can be chosen by the spectator. So you can get a link to all these files right in the description of the video here. So let me go back into our server file, server.js, and we are going to start coding. But actually, before we start coding, let's set up some things. Since we're going to be using Node and we are going to be using some packages, I'm going to have to set up a package.json file. So I have this terminal open down at the bottom here, and I'm going to do npm init-y, and that's going to just create my package.json file, and it just says yes to all the questions. So now that we've done that, we can install some things. So we'll do npm install. We'll be using, let's see, Express, body parser, and MongoDB. So we just install all that. And now we can start working on our server. So the first things, we're just going to require a lot of things at the beginning. Okay, we got all this initial setup done. Let's go over this. We've required Express. Now this is a web server for Node.js, so it makes it easier to set up a web server pretty quickly. And then we are going to be using the web server in app here. You'll see that later. Path. This is going to allow us to get the root path that a file is stored in in our directory. You'll see that in a second. Then we have body parser. This extracts the entire body portion of an incoming request stream and exposes it on the rec.body as something that's easier to interface with. What it basically means is it makes it much simpler to deal with data coming in from forms, and we have a form right on our page. So you know about MongoDB, we're going to be interacting with the MongoDB database, so we get this Mongo client for MongoDB. Now this URL, or actually let's call this URI, and we can even, I'm going to just put this all capitalized. So this is an environment variable, which is where our database is. So we're actually going to set this up right in Heroku, this environment variable in the MongoDB database. So we'll do that later. And then our server is going to be running on this port, which is either going to be at this environment variable or port 5000. And I'm going to add one more variable. We'll do a const, and this is going to be the DB name, the database name. And this is going to be an environment variable, so I'll do process.env.db name. These will be set in Heroku later. So now we need to include our middleware, the body parser middleware. So I'll do app.use, and then I'll just pass in body parser .url encoded, and then I have to put extended false. And then one more thing with the body parser. Now this body parser thing, the URL encoded and the JSON, this is something to help the forms. We'll be able to send the form data correctly to our server. Now we'll create our first route. So we'll do app.get. This is going to be an HTTP GET request, which is the normal type of request when you go to a website. We're doing a GET request. So the route is going to be /secret. So if a person goes to the secret route, that's where they can get the form to enter the card that the user has chosen. We will make this request arrow function. So after we go to that route, then it's going to run this function here. and it's going to do res.send file, and it's going to send our HTML file. We're going to do path.join underscore dir name secret.html. So what this is doing is it's finding the root directory where we're storing all of our files, and then adding secret.html on the end. Now, actually, I already created that file. So when you go to /secret, and it's going to send this file to the user, and it's this file right here. Now, I'll put a link in the description where you can get this file directly. I didn't think I should just type all this in because it's a lot of repetitive stuff, but this is the form that a user will see. And you can see the form action is to post to /secret, which is the same route that we're on, but this would be a post request instead of a get request to the /secret. And you can see they can input their name, and then it's a drop-down box for the number, and then a drop-down box for the suit, and then a submit button. So let's go back over to our server here. So our first route is /secret, and our second route is also /secret, but it's going to be a post request. And this is where, after someone fills in the form, they will submit the form data to this route here. So secret, and it's going to start off the same. So we'll do res. And this is not just going to be a one-line thing. This is going to be multiple lines. So once someone submits the data, it's going to have to connect to the Mongo database. So this is where we're going to use the Mongo client. And we'll connect, and we'll pass in the URI variable because that's where the database is that we're connecting to. And then I have to pass in this flag, use new URL parser. Now this is just something you have to do because things were updated, and now there's this new URL parser that's important to use. So pretty much all new databases that you're connecting to, you're going to pass in this new URL parser. And then we'll put in the function. So the result, we'll have an error, and then we'll have the database that we get as a result of connecting to this. And what we're going to do here is check if there's an error. So if there's an error, then we'll just do something simple. We're just going to console.log it. But if there's not an error, then we're going to get access to the database. So const DB, and that reminds me, actually this DB should really be a client. And then we access the DB down here, the database. Const DB equals client.db, and then we pass in the database name, which is just our environment variable. And then we have to get access to the collection of the database. So I'll do collection equals db.collection names. Now this collection that we're calling names, you can call it anything here. And the first time you access it, it's going to create it if it doesn't already exist. And now we have to create our entry that we're going to put into the database. So we'll do const entry, and we're going to have a name, which is just going to be rec.body.name.to lowercase. So from the request, the HTTP request, we're going to get the body and then the name, because remember we're passing in a name and a card, or a name and a number. So we get the name here, and then we convert it to lowercase, and that really should be a comma here. And then the card is going to just be rec.body.number. And so remember, we passed a number in a suit, and we're going to combine the number in the suit to the card name that corresponds to our files in our cards directory. So we'll do number plus of, so it'd be like 3 of hearts. So the next part is going to be rec.body.suit. Okay, now we've created our entry and we just have to insert that. So I'll do collection.insert1 because we're entering one item into the collection. And then we're going to pass in entry. That's the entry we just created. And then we'll have a function here. So this is an arrow function, error and result. And in this, if there is an error, then we can just console.log the error. Else, we'll send something back. Res.send, and we'll just send back a string inserted into database. So that'll just show up on the screen, that string. And then we have to make sure to close the database. So I'll do db.close at the end here. Now we have to create our other route. So remember, the other route is if someone goes to the URL and then puts a person's name at the end. So we'll do app.get, and this is where we can put a variable right in the route. So I'll do slash and then colon param, and then I'll put a star or asterisk here, and this becomes a variable. So a route with a variable at the end, and then we have our function, rec.res, this arrow function here. And we can do something with the information we get from the route. So let's figure out what name was passed in as this parameter here. So we'll do const name equals rec.url.slice. So this URL, we're getting it as a full section here, and we are going to slice it and just get the index 1 of the URL, which will be the name. And then we can do to lowercase. And then once we have the name, we can connect to the database again. So Mongo client, and it's just like before, where we're going to connect. We're going to pass in the URI. We are going to put in this flag here, use new URL parser, true, and then we have our function. So in the function, we're going to have the error, and then we're going to have a reference to the client. And let me scroll this a little bit here. So if there is an error, we'll just console.log it just like before. Else, we can do something with that name. So first we'll store the database in a variable. So db equals client.db, and we'll pass in the db name. And then we need the collection. This is just like before. Equals db dot collection names. And remember, if someone puts the word delete all in the URL, we want to delete the whole database. So we're going to check if the name equals delete all. And then if it does, then we'll do collection.remove And if we just pass in an empty object, this is going to remove everything, and it's going to delete everything in the collection. And then we'll just send a message, which is just database reset. So that should appear on screen so we know that that happened. Else, so for any other name here, we'll do collection.find. So we want to find the item in the collection of the name. So we're going to pass in name colon name. So the first name is the key in the database, but this name is actually the variable from here. So if the name of the database equals the name we passed in, well, we're going to convert that to an array because there could be multiple entries for that name, and we want every single entry that has that name to be returned as an array so we can do something with it here. So do arr result, and we'll have the arrow function here. And again, we'll just do if there is an error, then we'll just console.log the error. Else if result.length. Now this, if the length is 1 or more, this evaluates to true. If the length is 0, it evaluates to false. So if there is at least one result, then we're going to do this. Const card. We're going to get what the card was that's associated with that person. Result dot length minus 1. So result.length, this is an array index. Result.length minus 1 is the last item in that array. And then we want the card name of that item. And then we just have to add plus.png because that will be the file name. So now we have the file name of the card, and we'll just do res.send file, but instead of sending an HTML file, we can send a PNG file. So we'll do path.join _ dir name. This is just like before to get the directory, the actual full path to that card, that PNG file. So we have a cards directory. Let me get this in a string here. And then we will add the card. Oh, I need to get rid of this in semicolon and put it here. Okay, because we're joining all those things together into one path. Else, if there's no results, if the result.length equals 0, then we'll send the status of 404. And then the final thing we have to do is db.close. Now let's see what I did. Oh, this is supposed to be a curly brace here. So that's a curly brace. And this is a curly brace. So we created all of our variable names, and then we put in our middleware. Then we have our routes here. And the final thing we need to do is have our database start listening for people to connect to those routes. So we'll do app.listen, and then we'll pass in the port. That's the port number from our variables up above. Console.log server listening on port. So this message will go to the screen, so we know that the server is now listening on that port. Okay, now normally when you're going to do a project, you're going to set it up to work with a local database before you start using a database stored on another server. But we kind of skipped that step of trying to get this tested locally because we are going to go right to hosting this on Heroku and using a database that's right on Heroku. First, let me see if there's any mistakes I have to fix. Oh yeah, this should actually be spelled close here. And then this word is number. Okay, I'll save, and then we'll go over to Heroku in the browser. I'm already on the page to create a new app in Heroku, and we're going to call this AnyCard, which is available. Now, there can only be one of each name, so this name will be taken if you're trying to follow along. You'll have to pick a different name, but I'll do create app. Okay, now that I've created the app, this actually kind of tells instructions on what to do. So we want to log into Heroku and do Heroku login. Now, press any key to open up in the browser to log in. So I'll do that, and I can just click login. So now we're logged in to Heroku. You may actually have to download and install the Heroku CLI. I'd already done that. So we'll look at this. It says initialize a Git repository. And so we'll go back over here and do git init. We got a new Git repository. And it says to run this line right here, Heroku git remote. So we're setting Heroku as a remote host for our Git repository. And the next thing it says to do is just do a git add. Okay, before we add everything, we are going to add a git ignore file and ignore our node modules directory. So I'll do new file and do git ignore, and then we'll just add node modules. So now I'll do git add, and then we can go to this one, the git commit am. We're just going off of these directions here, even though I think a lot of you probably already know the different commands here, but we'll do first commit, and then the last thing it recommends doing is git push Heroku master. So we'll run that. Okay, now that that's done, we are going to add our database. We can do that right from the command line with Heroku add-ons create Mongo lab. Okay, we have one final thing we need to do, which is to make sure our environmental variables are all set up. So I'm in the Heroku dashboard on the settings tab, and if I click reveal config vars, now these config vars are the environmental variables. Now this is automatically put in for us when we set up MongoLab. It has the MongoDB URI, it has this URI here. We still need to create the DB name. So the DB name is actually right in this URI. I just have to copy this section right here. Now, it will be different for you than for me because this is all randomly generated. So I'm going to copy the section between these slashes and that colon. I'll copy it and just paste in the value here and then click add. Now, if I've done everything correctly, our app should work now. So let's give it a test. Okay, now I'm to my app URL, anycard.herokuapp.com/secret. And if I type in a name here, and then I can choose the 3 of spades. If I click submit here, and we have an error. Okay, well I'm going to copy my Heroku logs / tail or -- tail. I can put it into my command line over here. I'll paste this in, and then I can see the Heroku logs, and it should tell us what the problem was. db.close is not a function. Now, did I spell something wrong here? Oh, okay. I see what we did wrong. Okay, so this is a client here. So down here, when we do db.close, it should be client.close. And then same with down here, client. That should fix it. So if I save this, and then I'm going to go out of this, git add, now git commit message update server, and then I'll go to the git push Heroku master. Okay, I'm going to go back over to my browser and load this again. Type in my name, Bo. Bo. And then ace of diamonds. Submit this. Insert into database. So if I go to Bo here, it should show ace of diamonds. It worked. Now if I should go to another name like Quincy, not found. So any other name is going to be not found. If I do delete all, database reset. If I go to secret again, it will go to this page again. So I can make this magic trick work. All I have to do is ask someone to pick a card, and then I have my co-conspirator or my helper would type in their name like Quincy, and then put the number, maybe it was the 7 of spades, click submit, and then when I have my person go to the URL / their name, it's going to show the card they chose. So everything worked. So you can try this out with your own deck of cards, or you can purchase the freeCodeCamp deck of cards. Like I said, the link is in the description. Well, thanks for watching. And remember, use your code for good.